From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. The U.S. State Department has set April 25th as the deadline for Venezuelan diplomats at the Venezuelan embassy of Code Pink media.
We've here every night and belongs in the hands of that is actually in power in Venezuela, and that's the Maduro government. It's the government that's recognized by the United Nations. It's the government that could actually issue or take care in a diplomatic. And yet you have this fake government created, really took over already in Washington, D.C. for the thing and them really, and that they were going to take over this embassy.
In Russia, between Ecuadorian leader Kim Jong Un. The two leaders met at the Far East Federal University campus in the city of Vladivostok on Thursday. The summit is the first between Putin and Kim, and both leaders expressed hope that the visit will strengthen relations between Russia and North Korea.
I'm sure that your visit to Russia today will help to develop bilateral relations and will help us understand how to reach settlement over the Korean Peninsula. What can we do together? What Russia can do to support the positive processes that are going on right now? We welcome your efforts to develop the inter-Korean dialogue and to normalize North Korean-US relationship.
As you said, I too hope that our meeting with you, Mr. President, will be useful for the strengthening and the development of traditional friendly relations between the DPRK and Russia, which run deep. And I would like to say that the situation on the Korean Peninsula is attracting interest of the whole world. I hope that our talks will become an important milestone to sum up the situation, exchange opinions about it, and to negotiate resolutions together.
Meanwhile, defense officials in Russia say the United States is the cause of worsening global security. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said during the 8th Moscow Conference on International Security that many of new centers of potential armed confrontation are initiated from outside. He argued that the U.S. was the source of the problem, citing Yemen, Libya, Syria, and Iraq. Our correspondent Hans Eloro has more from Moscow.
Greetings to you and all of our viewers. While it is expected the meeting between the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and the leader of the Democratic Republic of Korea, Kim Jong Un, that will take place in Vladivostok, in Russia's capital, 8th International Security Conference is taking place with more than 1,000 representatives from 100 countries. During the event, the Secretary of the Security Council of the nation, Nikolai Puchev, discussed complaints concerning the growing presence of the United States in Latin America based on the so-called Monroe Doctrine, exacerbating the U.S. destructive approach in Venezuela with the purpose of overthrowing the president of the South American country, Nicolás Maduro, especially referring to the so-called hybrid war, added to the international demonstrations and a constant threat of an international invasion, altogether with the disinformation campaign to try to distort or at least manipulate the reality of this nation through the Western media.
That was Hans Eloro from Moscow. And the parents of the Swedish computer programmer Ola Bini have spoken to Telesur 2 weeks after the son was arrested for alleged ties with Julian Assange.
The condition in the prison is not so good. All the prisoners are laying on the floor. 95 people share 17 mattresses. They had to see daylight 3 days a week. And they have water for 5 hours a day maybe, and it's cold water, and they cannot drink it. So there's a lot of things who's not so good for them, for all the prisoners.
What we expect and what we want is that he gets a fair trial, that all the things that went wrong under the arrest is taken under consideration, and also the evidence that he had a book of Noam Chomsky, a couple of USB sticks and a couple of computers. That is the evidence they have showed. And I don't think it's a crime to have any of those things.
Bini's father said he cannot understand why his son was arrested. The parents wanted to send a message to the Ecuadorian government.
We don't know that, but the only explanation I can give in my own thoughts is his friendship with Assange. That's the only thing, but nothing else. Please, the Ecuadorian government, next time you meet Ola, give him a fair trial, working.
A vigil was held outside the UK Parliament Square in support of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Our correspondent, Pablo Navarrete, was at the demonstration in London.
Nearly 2 weeks after the Australian publisher Julian his release and to respect international law. Now there have been speeches made by numerous people, and there is a large contingent of Latin Americans who have come to express their anger at the condition being kept. He's being kept in a high security prison which is where the British government normally keeps those considered terrorists. So as we know, nearly 2 weeks ago the British government entered the Ecuadorian embassy after Lenin Moreno, the Ecuadorian president, says he stripped Julian Assange. So here the people are shouting hands off Assange and continuing to demand from the British government that they release Julian Assange, a journalist who they say is being persecuted for exposing US war crimes, and criticising the British government for its to extradite him.
UK. Now, more Central American migrant caravans have been arriving in Mexico. According to officials, there are thousands of people waiting to regularize their immigration status in the States.
In January, he was fleeing the poverty and violence of Central America. With few belongings, like most others in his situation, he joined one of the many caravans. This unusual flow of migrants increased sharply in the last quarter of 2018. The number of women, adolescents, and children increased the most. A third of those on the caravans are minors. Officials of the national on Monday, on the road from Mapastepec to Pijijiapan, some of them were attacked by a group of migrants who, according to the official version, refused to go to a registration post. The ministers of the Interior and Foreign Relations explained the situation in the southern state of Chiapas, where more than 5,800 people are waiting for a permit that allows them to cross.
As we have said before, the migratory policy of the government of Mexico has three fundamental axes: the protection of human rights, the economic and social development of the countries of the Central American region, and the orderly registration of migrants who enter our territory.
However, the arrival of so many foreigners has overwhelmed many of the Mexican institutions and is stretching the resources of the towns and communities along the route of the caravans.
We must support not only migrants in Tapachula, but also the...
During the month of April, nearly 12,000 people have been in Asia. In Tapachula, there are at least 1,300 people waiting for their migratory situation to be resolved.
We have more stories coming up. Don't go away.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Get your body. Tuesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Indigenous communities are protesting in the Brazilian capital against President Jair Bolsonaro and his policies. Our correspondent, Danai Galetti, has more.
Sí, gracias. Un placer saludarte a ti y a quienes reciben la señal de Telesur.
We're here at the headquarters of Brazil's government, where indigenous people have set up camp. More than 5,000 indigenous leaders are expected to join the protests in representation of over 800,000 indigenous people. Last week, Minister of Justice Sérgio Moro authorized security forces to act where indigenous people have already planned to demonstrate from the 24th to the 26th of April. Indigenous communities say that their demonstration is peaceful and that they set up the camp to defend the rights of their communities, especially to defend their rights, which are in danger since Jair Bolsonaro took office and began to attack the rights of the indigenous people, rights that are protected by the Constitution, including the right to own lands.
Also correspondent Danai Galetti. And the protests in Brazil have been fueled by the increasing conflicts over the Amazon, which is at risk due to land invaders. Communities and activists say that these illegal groups have taken the initiative due to Bolsonaro's policies against the environment.
We want the government to do something urgently, because there will be trouble for the illegal farmers. Is that what you want?
I am a chief. I will die if you kill my land, but I will fight for my people.
Against the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal in Chile. Police attacked demonstrators with water cannons. Around 300 people protested, saying that it represents a threat to the country's sovereignty and puts workers' rights at risk. The Congress approved the deal on April 17th. 745 Chilean students were expelled from school in 2018 under the Safe Classroom Law, one of the main initiatives of President Sebastián Piñera. But according to experts and students, the project is criminalizing the student movement and violating their rights.
A few days and forced to spend the night in a police station.
Many people remember these things happening during the dictatorship. I think the violence has reached a high point in a symptomatic way, with all the demands we've established.
President Sebastián Piñera, the Safe Classroom Law is supposed to reduce violence inside the schools. However, the reality is that the law is trying to put out the fire with gasoline. Why has this happened? The law has given more power to the school principals to lead raids, to expel students, and to take so-called precautionary measures to repress the students who fight for better public education and reject a system where education is seen as a commodity.
I studied in the Javier Carrera 1 school where I was attacked. I had to change schools because of that. But today I want to stand with my former classmates who are being expelled from their schools. They're not receiving the right to an education just because the principal wants to expel any student who is protesting to gain rights for everyone.
Students are being arrested, handcuffed, controlled and attacked.
We are seeing that there is not an education system, but a judicial one for the children.
I think there's a political purpose here. Principals are not running a school but a military center. Students are facing an atmosphere of harassment and political persecution that we are not going to accept. As a counselor, I won't accept it. Neither will parents or guardians.
Through years of mobilizations, students could give the Chilean people back their universal right to education.
Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the government needs to improve the economic and social environment in order to encourage members of the diaspora to return to the country.
For many years, we have relied on the remittances of the diaspora. It helps many households. That's how many children go to school. That's how groceries are bought for the household. But that is not going to be enough for the economic prosperity that we seek. What really needs to happen is for the government to create the economic and social environment to find your way back and feel assured that if you were to make the decision to come back to Jamaica, that you would not be sacrificing a quality of life that you have attained here.
And Jamaica is hoping to take a bigger bite out of that $22 billion global. It has waived fees associated with facilities. 3 farms have approval pending for another 12. The first U.S.-bound shipment. Tobago's main rich forest reserve has been named the Caribbean Nature Park of the Year in the Caribbean Journal's Green Awards for 2019. The lush reserve is protected specifically for conservation reasons. It's part of the island's thriving ecotourism product. Visitors enjoy its tropical beauty through tours, nature walks, and bird watching. We're taking one last break. Stay with us.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
Thank you for joining us again. Ahead of Spain's general election on April 28th, the Spanish National Institute of Statistics has electoral consequences. In wealthier districts, electoral participation exceeds 80%, while in areas with fewer resources, that figure is 40%.
One of the 10 most economically disadvantaged in all of Spain. Social exclusion here exceeds 70%, and locals don't want to hear about politics.
The majority don't vote because politicians don't care about what we think or need and make budget cuts where they shouldn't. They should make cuts to more material things, which benefit people who don't really need it.
Existing on the edge of society, more than 30,000 people in peripheral neighborhoods have been disconnected from politics, and high voter apathy means further exclusion for residents.
The reasons are deep. because they are disillusioned. There is a general disenchantment compared with the city, and people feel like they're invisible to the institutions.
Rich districts vote more than poor ones, with turnout of 80% compared with 40% in those with fewer resources. It's a phenomenon that gives political advantages to the wealthiest in society.
People at risk of social exclusion have few, and the idea that their vote will not make a difference. The result is a vicious cycle, and the politicians know that and ignore these areas.
The campaign focused on a war of flags has long passed by those enduring poverty and exclusion in Spain, issues affecting 30% of the population. Inequality in peripheral neighborhoods is not only economic, it's also electoral. In the neighborhood of La Palmilla, only 25% of the electorate voted.
Minister in Sri Lanka has admitted that the Easter bombings lapse in intelligence and that the government has to take responsibility. Another explosion is being investigated to the east of the country. Rescue workers in South Africa have discovered more bodies of those killed by the recent floods. At least 60 people have been confirmed dead and over 1,000 were displaced by flooding and mudslides, which occurred mainly in the port cities. President Cyril Ramaphosa visited affected communities and told survivors that he would ensure that all their needs are addressed.
We will give you as much support as we possibly can, and we will make sure that the needs that you have are addressed and that they are met at all our levels, provincial, local, as well as national level.
In Uganda, at least 17 children and 1 adult have died after heavy rains battered the east of the country. The rains have also caused extensive damage to houses, leaving hundreds of families in the cold. Uganda, which has 2 long rainy seasons, is prone to floods and landslides. An investigation has revealed how African gold worth billions of dollars is being smuggled out of the continent every year, with the precious metal being funneled through the United Arab Emirates. The gold eventually ends being recorded in the exports of African states. Countries like Ghana complain that gold is illegally produced and smuggled out of their countries on a vast scale.
This bar is the product of my hard work. When we get the gold, we take it to the town of Tarkwa. Are located. Gold has value. Even with a small sample, you can get a lot of money to take care of your family.
Officials running a refugee detention center east of Tripoli have lamented the lack of essential supplies. Detainees in the custody. He said the International Organization for Migration has not responded to their request for assistance. Thousands of asylum seekers are in detention centers across Libya.
The Tajura, Somalia, South Sudan, and some Arabs from organizations have been providing us with small, insufficient amounts of food.
The Italian Plan of Action.
Influx of refugees is an important aspect for Europe. In recent days, I wrote to the European Commission to request a plan of action be ready in the case
on Monday during General Khalifa Haftar's forces around Tripoli. According to the United Nations, the fighting has claimed the lives of 264 people, including 21 civilians, since April 5th. To take Tripoli from the UN-backed government of National Accord. That brings us to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can read more on these stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. We're on Facebook, Twitter. Thank you for watching.